In Texas, horror doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it waits in the grass, sometimes it whispers through a candy wrapper, and sometimes it watches from the trees. These are 3 true horror stories you won't forget. Stay with us till the end. The last one still has no explanation. Subscribe if you want more stories that chill quietly. Case 1. The Texas Killing Fields, where the highway ends and the dead begin. The stretch of Interstate 45 between Houston and Galveston looks like any other Texas road. Flat, quiet, bordered by swamplands and power lines. But to those who've lived there long enough, it has another name: the Killing Fields. Over the past 4 decades, more than 30 women and girls have gone missing or turned up dead along this corridor. Their bodies are often found in overgrown fields, drainage ditches, or wooded clearings. Most of the cases remain unsolved. No single killer was ever named. Some believe it was the work of multiple predators. Others think the land itself invites the worst in people. It began in the early 1970s. A 13-year-old named Colette Wilson disappeared after being dropped off by her band director. Her remains were found months later near Addicks Reservoir, 50 miles from where she vanished. Then Brenda Jones, 14, was last seen on her way to visit a hospital. Her body was discovered in Galveston Bay. Then Rhonda Johnson and Sharon Shaw, 2 friends, found tied together in a marsh. One after another, the disappearances bled together. Each time, police were stunned by how similar the cases were. Young women, often teens, abducted in broad daylight, then dumped in remote areas where only snakes and mosquitoes would find them. The area that became known as the Killing Fields was once oil land, wide open, muddy dotted with weeds and water towers. It sat just off Calder Road outside the town of League City. Locals often passed it without notice. There were no fences, no cameras, no lighting, just vast, eerie silence. In 1983, a dog found something in the grass human bones. Police discovered the decomposed body of 25-year-old Heidi Fye. She had worked as a waitress and vanished after a phone call from a payphone. A year later, the remains of 16-year-old Laura Miller were found nearby. She had also disappeared from a payphone. Her father, Tim Miller, had begged authorities to search the field. They didn't until it was too late. And still the killings didn't stop. In 1986, another set of bones was unearthed. This time they belonged to 30-year-old Jane Doe. No one knew who she was. She had no name, no ID, no one who came forward. She was buried as an unknown. Then, in 1991, the skull of 20-year-old Suzanne Renee Richardson was found in the brush. She'd vanished years earlier from her job at a Galveston hotel. Her case had long gone cold until the Killing Fields gave her back. Families began to notice a pattern. The girls weren't just vanishing, they were being hunted. Some had last been seen hitchhiking. Others were simply walking to school or riding their bikes. Many were last spotted near convenience stores, payphones, or bus stops, and somehow their trails always led back to that strip of land beside the highway. The fear crept in slowly. Parents stopped letting their daughters walk alone. Girls carried pepper spray. News crews arrived, but the killers never did. Police arrested a few suspects over the years, men with violent pasts, sex offenders, drifters. Some even confessed, then recanted. A man named Edward Harold Bell admitted to killing 11 young girls in letters sent from prison. He was already serving time for another murder. Authorities couldn't verify his claims. Then there was Clyde Hedrick, convicted of manslaughter in 2014 for the death of Ellen Beeson. He had long been suspected of involvement in other disappearances. Tim Miller believed Hedrick had killed his daughter Laura, but without physical evidence, the case stalled. In 2019, DNA testing linked one set of remains, formerly a Jane Doe, to 14-year-old Michelle Garvey, who had run away from Connecticut in 1982. Her body had been found in the fields and buried under the wrong name for 30 years. And that's what makes the Killing Fields so terrifying. Even when the bodies are found, the stories remain buried. To this day, the fields along I-45 haven't changed much. The weeds still grow high. The humidity hangs heavy. Cars still fly past, unaware that they're passing over ground soaked in silence and sorrow. The field doesn't look evil. It looks like nothing. And that's exactly why it worked. Filmmakers and journalists have tried to capture its darkness, some through documentaries, others through dramatizations. But those who've walked the fields say it's the quiet that gets you. The eerie hum of insects, the lack of birds, the breeze that dies before it touches your skin. Tim Miller never stopped searching. He founded Texas EquuSearch, a nonprofit that helps locate missing people. His organization has assisted in hundreds of recoveries, but the one case he wanted most to solve, his own daughter's remains, officially unsolved. In the end, no single killer was ever named, no pattern fully proven. Some say the area drew predators like a magnet. Others say it's just coincidence, a terrible alignment of geography, opportunity, and evil. But the truth is simpler and colder. For decades, something hunted women along that highway, and the fields never gave them back. In interviews, Tim Miller has described the field as a graveyard with no names. He once stood in the middle of it, surrounded by the wind and weeds, and said he could still feel Laura's presence, like the land itself was trying to speak, but couldn't form the words. Detectives have come and gone. Some were young officers during the first disappearances and retired decades later, still haunted by the cases. Many admit that the field became a symbol of failure, of how easy it is for evil to hide in the open when no one expects it. FBI profilers were brought in. They said the killer or killers likely lived nearby, knew the terrain, and hunted opportunistically. But that could describe hundreds of people. Without DNA, without witnesses, the field consumed the evidence just as easily as it consumed the bodies. In 2006, the construction of a subdivision nearby threatened to disturb parts of the field. Forensic teams were brought in to examine the soil before the land was sold. They didn't find new remains, but they did find items, rusted jewelry, pieces of clothing, fragments of belts, things that didn't belong to the earth. Local kids used to dare each other to walk the field at night. Some claimed to see shadows moving behind the brush. One teen swore he heard a girl crying only to find nothing but silence. Whether it was guilt, imagination, or something more, no one could say. Today, a memorial cross stands at the edge of the Calder Road site. It's weathered simple. No names, just a reminder. Fresh flowers appear there from time to time. No one knows who leaves them. The killing fields don't make headlines anymore. But the families remember. The fathers who dug through underbrush with their bare hands. The mothers who taped missing posters to every light pole in town. The siblings who never stopped looking at strangers, wondering if one of them held the answer. And maybe they do, because somewhere someone still knows what happened in those fields. Case 2. The Candy Lady of Terrell. In the small town of Terrell, Texas, nestled among quiet farms and country roads, children once whispered a name with more fear than fascination. They called her the Candy Lady. At first, it was just a story passed around on school buses and playgrounds. They said she left pieces of candy on windowsills overnight. The candy came wrapped in shiny foil sometimes with a handwritten note tucked inside. The notes were strange, friendly at first, then personal, and eventually unsettling. Most adults didn't take it seriously. Rural Texas towns in the early 1900s were full of tall tales, and this one seemed like another way to keep kids from wandering off. But over the decades, the legend didn't fade. In fact, it grew especially after real children began to disappear. One of the earliest documented rumors involved a young boy who claimed he'd been getting candy for weeks. Then one morning, his window was open, the candy was gone, and so was he. His parents thought he ran away, but a few days later, a local farmer found something in a ditch by the edge of his cornfield. It was a tooth, a human molar, small, child-sized, wrapped in candy foil. By the 1920s, the name Candy Lady was no longer just a tale traded in whispers. Local newspapers started mentioning strange happenings in Terrell and nearby areas, children reporting strange dreams, missing livestock, strange figures spotted at the edges of fields at dawn. One report from 1928 told of a young girl named Ellie who went missing on her way to school. Her books were later found near a wooden fence just outside her house, each page stuck together with what appeared to be thick, sugary syrup. Her shoes were still by the porch. Her room was untouched. The only thing missing besides Ellie was the candy that had been left on her windowsill the night before. The sheriff at the time, a man named Hoyt McKinney, dismissed the idea of a supernatural figure. He chalked it up to rural hysteria, but then he vanished too. According to town records, Sheriff McKinney disappeared in 1929. His patrol car was found parked behind the local Baptist church keys, still in the ignition. The only clue inside was a pile of candy wrappers on the passenger seat and a single handwritten note. She watches from the corn. Some say the note was a prank. Others say it was real and that it was written in the same loopy cursive found in letters collected from families of missing children. Over time, stories about the Candy Lady began to take on more sinister details. People said she was a recluse who lived deep in the woods, that she lured children with sweets and then harvested their teeth to make sugar. One tale claimed she had a farm where the scarecrows had real human eyes stitched into their burlap faces. Another said she replaced her own missing teeth with the ones she took from children. Though no hard evidence ever surfaced, the disappearances didn't stop. In the 1950s, two brothers went missing after telling their mother they'd seen a lady in white offering them treats near a dry creek bed. Their bicycles were found lying in the tall grass, one with melted candy crushed under the tires. By the 1970s, parents warned their kids about her the same way they warned them about rattlesnakes or open wells. Don't take candy from strangers, they'd say, especially not the Candy Lady. In 1983, a local tabloid ran a cover story that reignited public interest. The headline read, "Is the Candy Lady Real Terrell's Sweetest Urban Legend Might Be a Killer?" It featured interviews with older residents who swore they had lost siblings, cousins, or classmates under strange circumstances. One man claimed he found dozens of foil candy wrappers under his bed as a child, though his bedroom window had been nailed shut. But there was one case that truly cemented the story into local lore. In 1991, 10-year-old Daniel Miller disappeared from a family picnic. The park was crowded, his parents distracted for only minutes. When they realized he was gone, a search party combed the area for hours. Dogs traced his scent to the tree line, then nothing. 2 days later, a park ranger found a trail of candy wrappers leading to an abandoned barn. Inside the barn, nothing but shadows and dust. Except in one corner, someone had drawn dozens of tiny, childlike handprints in the dirt, as if children had pressed their palms into the ground, then vanished. Daniel was never found. That story made national news for a brief time, but without new leads, it faded like all the others. The Candy Lady returned to legend, always there, just under the surface, waiting. To this day, children in Terrell dare each other to leave candy on their windowsills. Most wake up to find it untouched. Some claim it disappears. And every once in a while, someone finds a note. Not printed, not typed. Just a piece of paper folded small in that same cursive script. "Come outside. I have something sweet for you." Whether the Candy Lady ever existed or still does is up for debate. Skeptics say it's all just urban legend. Others argue that behind every myth there's a seed of truth. And in Terrell, Texas, that seed has grown into something enduring. Because candy still goes missing. Windows still creak open in the night. And children still wake up with the feeling that someone was watching. Maybe it's just the wind in the corn. Or maybe it's her. Case 3. The Lake Worth Monster. A Night of Terror. At the Greer Island Bridge. In the scorching summer of 1969, teenagers from Fort Worth, Texas often sought refuge by Lake Worth, particularly around Greer Island, a scrubby tree-lined peninsula, half swallowed by the lake itself. It was the kind of place where campfire smoke curled through cattails and cicadas cried into the dark. But that summer, it wasn't the insects or the heat that had the town whispering. It was something else. On the night of July 9th, a group of 6 teenagers parked their car near the edge of the island. The air was thick and still. Crickets chirped. A low fog hovered over the reeds. Then, just as the group was settling in, something slammed into the car with enough force to rock it onto 2 wheels. Screams tore through the dark. One of the boys switched on the headlights, and that's when they saw it. A massive creature nearly 7 feet tall, covered in white-gray scales or fur with long arms and glowing eyes. It let out a guttural roar and bounded back into the trees. The police were called. At first, no one believed the kids. But when an officer arrived later that night, he too saw something move something big. The next day, more reports came in. Fishermen couples, even a housewife, claimed to have seen the goat man, the Lake Worth monster, that white thing. Whatever it wasn't done, and it wouldn't stay hidden for long. In the days that followed, Lake Worth transformed from a sleepy spot for night fishing into a full-blown monster hunt. Locals, reporters, and even amateur cryptozoologists flooded the area. Some brought cameras, others brought guns. 2 men, Jack Harris and John Reichart, told police the creature had leapt from a bluff and landed on their car, leaving a deep dent and claw-like scratches across the hood. Photos of the damage ran in local papers. It was no prank, they insisted. They had no reason to lie. Others claimed they heard something inhuman howling near the water after midnight. A group of high schoolers camping by the lake said they saw red eyes glinting in the brush before something hurled a tire at their fire, sending sparks and coals flying. The legend grew legs both figuratively and literally. By the 3rd week of July, over 40 different eyewitnesses had filed statements with police. Some described the beast as a white-furred monster. Others said it was scaly like a reptile. A few insisted it was part man, part goat walking upright but with thick legs and hoofed feet. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the sighting stopped. No new encounters, no new evidence, no creature captured or found. Theories abounded. Some said it was a feral man with a skin condition. Others swore it was a circus escapee, a gorilla, or mutated animal. A few believed it was a hoax orchestrated by students with a ghillie suit and a warped sense of humor. But that didn't explain the claw marks or the tire that had been thrown 40 feet through the air. And it didn't explain the fear that lingered. In the decades that followed, the Lake Worth monster became folklore. A joke to some, a campfire tale to others. But for those who were there, those who heard the screams or felt the ground shake, there was nothing funny about it. In 2005, a cryptid researcher named Shelby Payne visited the island with thermal cameras and motion sensors. She captured footage of something tall and fast-moving ducking into the reeds just for a second. It was blurry, grainy, but enough to send chills down her spine. Then, in 2013, an elderly man contacted the Fort Worth Star-Telegram with a startling confession. He had been involved in faking some of the monster sightings as a teenager, using a homemade costume to scare people. But even he admitted there were nights when he wasn't out there. And the sightings still happened. He laughed it off, but his voice trembled when he said it. Today, Greer Island is quiet again. The trees have grown thicker. The dirt paths are mostly overrun with weeds, but every so often someone claims to hear something, a heavy splash in the water, a low grunt in the reeds, or a shape moving just out of sight. In 2021, a drone enthusiast named Caleb Martin was filming aerial footage of the lake for a school project. While reviewing his video, he noticed something strange, a bipedal figure ducking beneath a bridge arch just as the drone passed overhead. It was white, it was fast, and it was tall. Caleb posted the clip online. Some said it was a prank, others weren't so sure. Local forums lit up again. A woman who had grown up in the area commented, "That's exactly what I saw when I was 11. I thought I'd imagined it, but now I'm not so sure." The post was later deleted. Still, no one's proven what the Lake Worth monster was, or is. but the fear it brought was very real. And for the people of Fort Worth, the question still lingers, especially on warm summer nights when the air gets heavy and the lake is still. What if it's still out there, just waiting in the dark? Back in the summer of 1969, the local sheriff's department received dozens of phone calls in a matter of days. Some calls were frantic. One woman reported seeing the creature outside her kitchen window at 3 a.m., its head level with the top of her refrigerator. Her dog, she claimed, refused to go near the door for 3 days after. Another man, a delivery driver, said the creature crossed the road in front of his truck just outside the island's access path. It didn't run like a man, he later told reporters, more like a kangaroo, but powerful, like it didn't belong here. Frightened families began keeping their children indoors. Local stores reported an unusual spike in sales of flashlights, padlocks, and motion sensor lights. One father set up a series of tripwires with tin cans in his backyard, convinced the thing was creeping through the woods behind his house. And the fear wasn't just local. Newspapers as far as Chicago and San Francisco ran headlines: "Goatman terrorizes Texas town and is Bigfoot roaming Lake Worth." In the aftermath, the town tried to move on. Some insisted it had all been hysteria, but others, especially those who saw it, were never the same. A few refused to return to the lake. One teenage boy dropped out of school, reportedly plagued by nightmares for months. His parents eventually moved away. Years later, one retired officer admitted off record that there had been footprints found along the waterline, odd cloven prints that started and stopped abruptly, as if the creature had simply vanished. Even today, on certain nights, visitors report finding dead fish neatly arranged on the shore or strange symbols carved into tree bark. Most laugh it off, but some don't. Some horrors leave behind bodies, others leave behind questions. In Texas, both seem to linger. If stories like these stay with you, you might want to stay with us too. Subscribe for more.